Sure, it's Kelly O'Brien. It's Kelly O''Bryan.
Okay, and then what is your title and your position?
I'm the chair and assistant professor for the Department of Social Sciences and Humanities at Langston University. Oh, absolutely. Racism in all facets, not just the black and white racism, but amongst other groups of color and minority groups as well. When we're growing up, we're always taught that the men and women who are in blue, that have a badge, we can trust them. Mm-hmm. And for a long time, being raised that way, that's kind of what I've always thought. And it wasn't until I got older, become a teenager, and then eventually getting into the field, I realized that not all people in blue and wearing shields can be trusted.
I've got two names. Marlon Ladd is my screen name, my actor's name, director's name, and Marlon Ladd Edwards is my actual birth name. So it's MarlonLaddEdwards. I am an English professor. Because I was in law enforcement, now I really understand the problem more than I did back then. Back then I thought it was just racism, but it's more than that. It's a culture. It's about the training, it's about the limited qualifications, it's about the pay that they receive. And so that's why we keep seeing things happening. Even though there's a bright light being shown on it right now, it's still going to happen because it's the culture, it's the system.
My name is Robert Couch Jr. I feel like with every black male, there's the talk, where this is how you survive a police encounter. And honestly, let's keep it a band here. The police are the soldiers of racism. That in my personal opinion. And that talk really instilled fear in me, and I feel like it instills fear in African Americans all across the country.
One thing that they always say, justice is blind, but I question, is it really? When we elect people in positions of power to dictate the law, to interpret the law to the best of their ability, and they live a different life outside of the courtroom, that's going to spill over into your job. One thing we try to do, or they tell us to do when you go to work in the field, don't take it home with you. But you do. And sometimes you bring home to work. It's natural. It happens. We're human beings. So I do feel that at every level of our system, there's some type of racial disparity. Look at the stats alone.
Not just the police departments and who they're hiring. We're talking about prosecutors. We're talking about defense attorneys. We're talking about judges. This all affects us because we might be in the system one day and nobody wants to be in that system. You ain't gonna see hardly anybody that looks like you except for the people next to you that are gonna be in the jail with you.
So my name is Erman Lundell Hawthorne. It is spelled Herman, literally Herman. You can make a joke at any time you want to. And I only experienced it recently when I came back to campus after taking a year off from COVID, when I got pulled over by one of the cops up here. But it was a minor racism issue. It was just he profiled me. He let me go. I got profiled. I felt like in my own right, and that's what happened. But that was my first experience with me. But it's not as prevalent as people like to say it is up here. It kind of made me feel like, I don't want to say feel unsafe because I can handle myself, but it made me feel like, what are they here for?
Well, like for example, driving while black is it's not a new term, but people like to think it's a new term, driving while black, but it's not. Rodney King was one of the very first big publicized media frenzied cases, driving while black. Whether he was doing something wrong or not, that's not up for debate. What happened at that stop is where the problem lies.
But they keep finding these people that want to do these things. They want to get into altercations. They're looking for it. And within that system, you have that power complex, getting mad, taking things personal, which is what you see a lot of cops do.
You can go almost to every state and pull the UCR crime report, and that's something that you probably should do for your study, is pull all the uniform crime reports for traffic stops. And when you look at the numbers and you see how often a black person is stopped more than a white person at even down to the same intersection, there's a problem there. It's understandable if you have more black people in one area than you do any other race, but when you get to a place like Oklahoma City, where it's blended, you get to a place like Fayetteville, Arkansas, blended, and you still see more black representation in traffic stops than you do any other race, there's a problem. The St. Louis Police Department willingly gave over the records, and they were able to determine that, yes, it is true. there is racial profiling. Not even intentional. And sometimes officers will say, well, I didn't really think I was doing that. But then when it smacks them in the face, they're like, I didn't realize I was doing that. So sometimes I think it's, not intentional, but it got there for a reason.
Being a law enforcement officer, I was pulled over several times. I had a white police officer follow me out of an apartment complex. Pulled up, parked. He was leaving. Parked, went inside to talk to my friend for about 5 minutes, came back out. I noticed that he was still there, and he shouldn't have been, because he was leaving. So I pulled out my car. I was driving a red sports car, so I pull out slowly, and I see him pull out behind me. So I already know what he's doing. So then I'm like, I know he's not following me. So when I pull out of the apartment complex, I speed up a little bit, and he pulls out and he speeds up. He gets right behind me. So I quickly pull over, stick my badge out of the car, turn around as he's getting out, and I'm like, is there some reason why you're following me? And he's like, well, what is that? I was like, I'm a state police officer. This is my badge. Why are you following me? So he backed up, got in his car, left.
And how did that make you feel? Were you more so confused, or you more so angry that it ever happened?
I wasn't confused. I was angry, but I expected it. I had been pulled over by cops illegally even before I became a police officer. So I knew that. I knew it was going to happen, but I expected for some reason, because I was a police officer, that it wouldn't happen, and it did. And so I was just that got me thinking about the entire system. And a lot of these police officers, we would actually know. And he was a city police officer, and we were state police officers. So we didn't know a lot of city cops, and so I didn't know him personally, but some of these people we actually went through training with. And so you get to see them and some of their attitudes. And when I was, going through my training, I didn't see any issues. But it's once they get that power and authority and they're on the street and there's no accountability that you see these things happening. And so, what was the accountability for him? I didn't get to get his badge number or his license plate or anything like that. So he was able to back away and get out of there before he got in trouble. And there's no telling what he did to the next person of color that he stopped.
What I do think needs to happen is we need to require more of our officers in the form of training. That's big. Right now, I'm trying to work with a local agency now to offer diversity training because they cannot keep officers. For example, they hired 100 officers last month, and 49 of them quit within 10 days. That is bad. That's sending a message that that's not a good job, when it's an excellent job. It's a job that you can retire from at 57 years of age with full retirement. People aren't staying because it's tough. And one of the things I talked to the site director about, I said, why are they leaving? Well, because the old ones are running them off. Well, there's your problem. When you get people in positions where they feel like they're untouchable, that's where those things like racism, brutality, and inadequacies, inequality, all those types of things, that's where that's bred and is allowed to grow.
There's a huge disparity, top to bottom, in law enforcement. And it also won't change until we start recognizing what the real problem is. The real problem is not a few bad apples. The real problem is the entire system. And if we want to change law enforcement, we have to change all of it.
My name is Miracle Dawson.
Okay, can you please spell that for us?
MIRACLEDAWSSON.
Okay, thank you. The first question would be, have you ever experienced racism?
Yes, I have. I work in the healthcare. I'm a CNA, so I go through a lot of racism and stuff when it comes to taking care of my patients. It's hard to take care of somebody who's racist to you, but it's something I have to fight through every day.
What do they say to you?
I got called an ignorant nigger before. I got told that I don't know what I'm doing, that I'm retarded, stupid, and that basically they were I get called the black girl a lot at my job. So some of the things they say.
JUNEOTUONYE.
Thank you so much. First question for you, have you ever experienced racism?
Yeah, of course. One time, I think we all, every black man, every black woman probably experienced this one. You know, when you're driving, you're not doing nothing at all, but all of a sudden you get pulled over by the police. And you're not doing nothing. You sit there with your hands on the wheel, and you just look into their eyes because you're scared. You know why you're scared. You're scared because you don't know whether the police.
Last name for us?
My name is Manazia Bowen,
Can you spell that for us, please?
Manazio. Last name spelled Bowen. You know what? I actually have. Do you guys want me to go into it?
Yes.
Okay. So there was this one time I was at the Navy's with me and my friends, and it was this one couple who was rude, trying to get out, and was making eye contact with us, and we was trying to figure out what was going on. So by the time we got outside, they were just talking mess as they was walking to their car, and we were trying to brush them off or whatever. But as they drove by, they yelled out the N-word with the hard ER. And it was just like, it caught everybody off guard, and it was like why did you feel like the need to disrespect us that hard? And it really made me feel like racism is just, it's crazy, because why do people feel like they can just be able to spread hatred just because of the color of somebody else's skin, or the different race they're from, or ethnicity, or their background, cultural background?